Welcome, folks, to the Yes Brainer channel where we unravel the mysteries of the human mind. Have you ever wondered why it feels like all eyes are on you when you make a mistake? That peculiar sensation, my friends, is something we call the spotlight effect. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not talking about the glaring lights on a stage. This spotlight is a fascinating psychological phenomenon that makes us believe we're center of everyone's attention, particularly when something goes awry. Imagine, if you will, walking down a busy street. Suddenly you trip over an unseen crack in the pavement. Even though you quickly right yourself and continue on your way, the feeling of dozens of eyes on you persists. In reality, however, most people likely didn't even notice. Or picture this: you're at a social gathering, having a great time, when you spill a bit of salsa on your shirt. Instantly you feel like a beacon, radiating embarrassment and drawing everyone's gaze. Yet, when you look around, no one seems to be paying any mind to your stained attire. 2 is the spotlight effect at work. The spotlight effect is a term born out of the field of psychology, and it refers to our tendency to overestimate the extent to which others are noticing or observing us. It's a fascinating part of our psyche that can often lead us to believe that we are more prominent in others' minds than we truly are. It's as if our brains have their own little director, shouting, "Action!" and shining a spotlight on us at the most inopportune moments. This director, however, isn't concerned with reality. Instead, it's focused on creating a compelling narrative where we are the lead actor and everyone else is audience. But rest assured, more often than not, the world isn't watching us as closely as we think it is. We're not constantly in the spotlight, despite what our minds may have us believe. Isn't it fascinating how our brains can convince us that we are the center of attention, even when we're not? Now that we understand what the spotlight effect is, it's time to delve into why it happens. The roots of this psychological phenomenon lie deep within our inherent self-centeredness. Now, don't be alarmed by the term self-centeredness. It's not necessarily a negative trait, but rather a natural part of human cognition. You see, we're constantly at the center of our own world, observing everything from our unique perspective. This perspective often leads us to overestimate the extent to which others notice or remember details about us. Let's consider an example. When you walk into a room with a noticeable stain on your shirt, you might think everyone is staring at it. But in reality, most people probably didn't even notice, or if they did, they likely forgot about it within seconds. This is the spotlight effect in action, an overestimation of how much others are focusing on our blunders. But why does this happen? This is where the intricacies of our brain come into play. Our brains are wired to notice and remember negative events more than positive ones. When something embarrassing happens to us, our brain tends to amplify its significance, making us believe it's a bigger deal than it actually is. Moreover, our brains are not quite adept understanding that others do not share our perspective. This cognitive bias, known as egocentric bias, leads us to believe that others see the world exactly as we do, including all our perceived faults and flaws. In short, the spotlight effect is a byproduct of our brain's survival mechanism and our inherent self-focus. While it can to feelings of self-consciousness or even social anxiety, understanding its roots and why it happens can be the first step towards overcoming it. The spotlight effect is more common than you might think. That's right, my friends. This psychological phenomenon doesn't just happen on the big stage. It's present in our everyday lives, often in situations where we feel exposed or observed. Picture this. You're about to deliver a presentation to a packed room. You've practiced, you've prepped, and yet, as you step up to that podium, you feel as though everyone in the room is scrutinizing your every move. You become hyper-aware of the slight tremble in your voice, the tiny stain on your shirt, the way your hands are shaking just a little. This, my friends, is a classic example of the spotlight effect in action. But it doesn't stop there. Let's switch scenes. You're on a first date trying to make a good impression. As you reach for your glass of water, you knock over the salt shaker. Instantly, you feel as though all eyes are on you, judging your clumsiness. You're convinced that this minor mishap has ruined your chances of a second date. Again, this is the spotlight effect, making you feel as though you're the center of attention, even when you're not. Or how about job interviews? When You walk into a room, aware that every word you say, every gesture you make, could be the difference between landing your dream job or walking away empty-handed. The spotlight effect amplifies the pressure, making you hyper-conscious of your actions and words. Have you noticed the common thread here? In each of these situations, the individual perceives themselves to be the focal point, the star of the show, when in reality, they're just one part of a broader narrative. They feel observed, judged, and hyper-visible, even when they're not. These examples show that the spotlight effect can occur in almost any situation where we feel observed. So, next time you find yourself feeling like all eyes are on you, remember, it might just be your mind playing tricks on you. The spotlight effect can have a significant impact on individuals with social anxiety. Picture this. You walk into a crowded room and immediately, you feel as though every pair of eyes is on you. You're convinced that everyone is noticing every little thing about you, from the way you walk to the way you're dressed. This is a classic example of the spotlight effect, a cognitive bias that leads individuals to believe they are being observed and scrutinized more than they actually are. Now imagine feeling this heightened level of self-consciousness on a regular basis. This is the reality for those living with social anxiety. Social anxiety is characterized by a fear of being humiliated or embarrassed in social situations. This fear can be magnified by the spotlight effect, as individuals may feel that their every move is being scrutinized. It's like being on a stage with a spotlight on you all the time, only there are no applause or standing ovations at the end of the performance. Just an overwhelming sense of relief that it's over. However, understanding the concept of the spotlight effect can be a powerful tool in coping with social anxiety. Recognizing that people are not constantly watching or judging us can help to ease feelings of self-consciousness and anxiety. It's important to remember that everyone else is too absorbed in their own worlds, their own spotlights, to pay as much attention to us as we think they are. Think about the last time you were in a social situation. Do you remember what everyone else was wearing? What they said or did? Probably not. And that's because you were likely focused on yourself, just as they were focused on themselves. This realization can be incredibly liberating. It lifts the weight of imagined judgment and allows individuals to navigate social situations with more ease and confidence. It's like turning off the spotlight and allowing yourself to blend in with the crowd. By understanding the spotlight effect, individuals with social anxiety can start to challenge their perception that everyone is watching and judging them. So, how do we battle the spotlight effect? You may ponder. Good news is there's a roster of tactics that can help us accomplish exactly that. Let's examine these now. Firstly, cognitive behavioral techniques enter the scene. These methods challenge us to overthrow our negative thoughts and substitute them with more optimistic and realistic ones. So let's imagine you're feeling as if you're the cynosure of all eyes. It might be beneficial to reassure yourself that people are probably more engrossed in their own experiences than scrutinizing your every move. A minor shift in perspective can create a massive impact. Next, let's embark on the mindfulness journey. This is about anchoring ourselves in the present, instead of getting stranded in a sea of thoughts or future anxieties. By focusing on what's unfolding in the current moment, we start to recognize that our apprehensions about others' perception of us are merely fears, not facts. As we begin to witness things in their true light, the spotlight effect gradually dissipates. Lastly, we'll discuss reality testing. This process involves juxtaposing our assumptions against the concrete reality. For example, if you're fixated on the idea that everyone noticed the minuscule stain on your shirt, you could inquire a friend if they noticed it. More often than not, they might not have even spotted it. This method can effectively shatter the chains of the spotlight effect, help us perceive things more objectively. So voila, cognitive behavioral techniques, mindfulness, and reality testing. 3 potent tactics that can aid us in vanquishing the spotlight effect, allow us to feel less self-conscious, and boost confidence in social scenarios. And remember, battling the spotlight effect isn't about feigning indifference to others' opinions. It's about comprehending that we're not the pivot of everyone else's universe and that it's perfectly fine to err, to human. With consistent practice and patience, it's completely attainable to conquer the spotlight effect and feel at ease in your own skin. So, why not take a shot at it? What's there to lose?